Hi, it's me, Riverboat Jack, and I'm here to tell you guys that there is a horrible, horrible article out and about called "What Chasten Buttigieg Buttigieg." God, man, I haven't had to say the last name in so long. He's been so irrelevant. I wish it could have stayed that way forever. Unfortunately, Buttigieg has to tell us, and I gotta admit, this just looks like a really innocuous article, doesn't it? You know, I Have Something to Tell You by Chasten provides a blueprint for an LGBTQ politics whose only challenge to American empire and capitalism is that our most oppressive institutions should be queer affirming. And, well, let's just go, shall we? Now, I'm going into this with the default position of 1. Pete Buttigieg is a bad person and I don't like him. In fact, I think I deeply, deeply dislike him. I don't know anything about Pete Buttigieg's husband, who is Chasten Buttigieg. So I don't know anything about him, his politics. Like, I think the only thing I've ever seen of him was that he gave, like, he was, like, a camp counselor at a camp for, like, troubled queer youth. Like, he seems like a fine person. Now, again, this is every time, without fail, for the rest of my life, Pete Buttigieg comes up, I do have to play this clip, so I apologize in advance. This will probably be the one moment of levity in this segment, so embrace it. Here we go.
You've been on the front lines of corporate downsizing. You've been on the front lines of corporate price fixing. You've been on the front lines of our misadventures.
I'm sorry,
of our misadventures in foreign policy. You've had direct experience of many of the things that make a lot of young people very angry about the way that this country is operating right now. You don't seem to embody that anger.
So the proposition that I've been on the front lines of corporate price fixing is just to get that out of the way.
You worked for a company that was fixing bread prices.
I'm sorry, this man, I don't know who he is, single-handedly ended any political aspiration that Pete Buttigieg has to become president. There's never getting around this clip, this particular moment for Pete Buttigieg, okay? Never. It won't happen. It can't happen. Never. They will just pull this 30-second clip. That'll be it. It'll be done. Also, hello, Vosh Raiders. Welcome. You're getting here in the middle of a segment that is sure to get me fired up, so you got good timing. Welcome, folks. Come on over to riverboat.gg and say hi in the on-screen chat. Otherwise, we gonna be thangin' here. And also hit the subscribe button and the follow button so that you count as being here. Otherwise, you don't count. I don't make the rules. I'm sorry. Anyway, hello, everybody. Love you. Here we go. We're going to continue.
No. I worked for a consulting company that had a client that may have been involved in fixing, or was apparently in a scandal. I was not aware of the Canadian bread pricing scandal until last night.
You've been...
Just... Man, the weak comeback. But anyway, his husband wrote a book called I Have Something to Tell You. And this article in Current Affairs talks about it. I know nothing about the article. All I know is I've seen all I know is that I've seen, like, screenshots from it, and it might be one of the most odious things I've seen written. Just from the screenshot alone, but at least we're going to go through the entire thing. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that Yasmin Nair is an interesting writer. Now, I don't know exactly where she might be coming from when it comes to this particular topic, but I do know that she was one of the co-founders of a group in 2009 called Against Equality, which is a supposedly leftist group of queer and trans writers and critics who mainly made it their thing to criticize mainstream LGBTQ politics in the, before gay marriage was even legalized. Yeah, so basically the thesis of their group is that, we shouldn't be asking for things like gay marriage because that reinforces the structure of marriage. So it was a weird situation where the group she was a part of and continued to be a part of for quite some time was simply advocating against gay marriage because marriage is bad and therefore we don't want gays to have it. Which is insane. And incredible. And I found actually this interview with one of the members of her group from 2010, a queer argument against marriage. And yeah, it just essentially we might listen to this later. I don't know, but I just want you to know that this exists. And or like, hey, here's Yasmin Nair in 2014 on the eve of same-sex marriage becoming legal in America, because keep in mind 2014 it was still illegal to get gay married. The same-sex marriage trap. Yeah. It just I can't. I can't. I understand the impulse to critique things from the left, and there are ways to critique, like, the institution of marriage, but, like, to critique it in such a way as to prevent gay people who want to get married from getting married because there are legal restrictions on it seems insane to me.
Always with love and affection.
Insane to me. Also, Kairyu, thank you for gifting a sub to Heavy Poke Lover and Poke Lover. And Juzar, thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. Thank you. I appreciate it. The counter goes up. Now, as we continue, we're going to be diving into this particular article from Current Affairs. No thanks. All right. Let's start. I Have Something to Tell You provides a blueprint for an LGBTQ politics whose only challenge to American empire and capitalism is that our most oppressive institutions should be queer-affirming. Again, is it Chasten or Chasten? I'm going to say Chasten. Buttigieg. I Have Something to Tell You for Young Adults, a memoir. Simon & Schuster, May 2023. Adapted from I Have Something to Tell You, a memoir. Simon & Schuster, June 2021. Chasten Buttigieg, husband of Pete Buttigieg, and once a candidate for the position of first man, is 33 years old. So, of course, he has now fulfilled one of the 2 legally required conditions of what is known as the Jesus Year to write a memoir. The second is to create a podcast, undoubtedly on its way. These days, I'm sorry, I gotta click on this link. What is a Jesus Year? The 33rd year of your life where you are reborn in some sense? This sounds like something that's fake. That just sounds fake. It's fake and I hate it.
Another WHITENAME.
Thank you for continuing the white name purge. I appreciate it. Because this is actually how I make my living, believe it or not. Yeah, apparently if you're 33 years old, you're in your Jesus year. I guess because Jesus was crucified when he was 33 and then resurrected, so he... Anyway, this is already exhausting. I'm just gonna read it over here. Alright. These days, one needn't have lived too long before one's life is deemed, let's coin a term, memorific? Jesus Christ. Did you suffer some trauma growing up? Keeping in mind that trauma is such an elastic term these days that it's practically meaningless. Does any part of your identity fall outside the conventional norms of white, hetero, cis male? Is your husband a constantly aspiring presidential candidate whose life looks like a meticulously written script for the movie Pete Buttigieg, first gay president of the United States? Congratulations, you're Chasten Buttigieg, and you've just published a memoir titled I Have Something to Tell You. Why is it... This is already so goddamn salty. It's incredible. Like actually incredible. Or, to be accurate, you've just turned your previously published memoir into a version for a young adult audience. Why rewrite a memoir for young adults? Might be the question. Why not was clearly the answer over at Simon & Schuster, which had presumably seen the previous iteration of this book do well enough. Or perhaps the publisher saw the prospect of finding again another lucrative market, the one targeted at the people henceforth referred to as young adults. Man, okay. I mean, yeah, I don't want to read the life story of Chasten Buttigieg, but, like, I don't know. I don't care if somebody does, I guess. Yeah, all of this is the least surprising thing. Make no mistake, Chasten Buttigieg's memoir is in fact Pete Buttigieg's memoir. It's not just that... Is it Pete Buttigieg's memoir? Because I feel like most of it probably isn't.
Another Incite Chat gang.
Oh my goodness, Kairyu! Kairyu, please! Please don't put yourself in the poorhouse. Oh, please. Please, for the love of God. Also, thank you to everyone who just hit the follow button on Twitch and who subscribed over on YouTube. We're getting close to 2K over on YouTube, and I would really love to hit that number by the end of the year. So, anyway. This seems to be jumping to a weird conclusion, but okay. It's not just that being the husband of a prominent politician means that, of course, Chasten's words will be scrutinized and evaluated as carefully as Jacqueline Kennedy's white gloves and pillboxes. Rather, it's that Pete Buttigieg has been preparing for the presidency since almost as soon as he could walk. One pictures him as a tiny tot carrying a tiny briefcase with the words, "Office of the White House," scrawled in a childish hand. In fact, at the tender age of 11, he asked for a copy of JFK's Profiles in Courage as a birthday gift. That is... I mean, that is one of the lamest things I've ever heard in my life. But, you know, go off, King. Pete's life has been carefully curated as a Spotify playlist, and his dog's, Buddy, also the name of Bill Clinton's dog, and the recently deceased Truman. The Americana theme stretches every which way in this household. Okay, Truman I'll give you, but, like, Buddy is a pretty common name for a dog. I don't think that Pete Buttigieg named his dog after Bill Clinton's dog. That's a... Buddy, I've known like 5 different dogs named Buddy. Like, it's a very common thing. God. We're clearly handpicked to promote the best vibes. Buddy is one-eyed, proving that Buttigieg's are compassionate, and Truman was a houndish dog. Their mostly inactive Twitter account is First Dogs SB. Both were, of course, rescue dogs. During his campaign... This is an article about Chasten Buttigieg's memoir. Why is she talking about Pete Buttigieg's dogs? We're 3 paragraphs in. During his campaign for the presidency, Pete even ran a campaign commercial, Pete and Dogs, apparently meant to demonstrate that dogs love him. The fact that it ends with Buddy snoring may not have sent the intended message. Dogs sleeping are cute. Guys, there are so many things to criticize Pete Buttigieg on. None of these are things to criticize him on. Oh yeah, that man has dogs. And they're rescue dogs, and one of them has one eye. What an asshole. What? the fuck, dude? Anyway, even their children could not be more perfect. Why are you going after their kid? For one thing, they are twins, and there are few things cuter than twin babies. Yeah, okay, besides cats, which are infinitely cuter. And these are biracial children, a handy defense when bringing up Pete Buttigieg's troubled relations with his black voters while mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Oh my god, dude. As Nathan J. Robinson pointed out, by the way, Nathan J. Robinson, I believe, is a piece of shit. I feel like I read that somewhere, but I can't confirm. So I guess Pete Buttigieg clearly only adopted twins via surrogacy to defend against allegations of racism, and because the twins are carefully curated to be cute. Nathan J. Robin, yeah, he fire his entire staff because they wanted to unionize, something like that. Hey, Lefty McLefterson, how you doing? Okay, so this is insane shit. Okay, as Nathan J. Robinson pointed out in an extensive review of Pete's first, so far, autobiography, Shortest Way Home, One Man's Challenge and a Model for America's Future, quote, South Bend African Americans make half of what South Bend whites make. They're twice as likely to be in liquid asset poverty as whites. Their unemployment rate is nearly twice as high, unquote. I have no doubt, I have no reason to doubt that that's, you know, I have no reason to doubt that at all. But like, I'm confused at the direction this article is going already, but now I can see how an article about Chasten Buttigieg's memoir reaches the point that was shown in the screenshot. Which, by the way, if you guys don't know where this is going, this article is going to a point where it essentially accuses Matthew Shepard, the young man who was murdered for being gay and then left crucified in barbed wire on the side of the road. It's going to blame him for his own death. So that's where this is going. And I'm sorry for spoilers, but I guess I think maybe you should take some time to prepare yourselves for that, because it's coming. Anyway. Buttigieg attempted to win over African-American voters during his presidential run, but it was too late and he failed miserably in South Carolina. To his surprise, black voters turned out to be smart people who knew his history. Given their talent for curation, it's hard not to wonder if the Buttigiegs didn't also choose their children as carefully as Melania Trump chose her outfits. This doesn't mean that the pair don't love their incredibly adorable children, but given that Chasten looks like he was chosen from a catalog of, quote, good gay men, unquote, it's safe to say that even the most seemingly personal details of Pete's life are carefully chosen. This is so mean-spirited. We're only a handful of paragraphs in, and it's accusing Pete Buttigieg of like, choosing his husband because he looks like a safe gay, and also adopting two biracial children specifically because he wanted to counter racism allegations. There is nothing at all to substantiate any of this speculation. Oh my god! I'm sorry, I didn't read the next sentence. So after she accuses Pete Buttigieg of selecting Chasten Buttigieg as his husband because he looks like a good gay man, in parentheses it says, the two met on Hinge, so there's an element of catalog hunting in all of this. Well, of course. Well, if they met on a dating app, clearly Pete was choosing Chasten to further his political career. What? What is wrong with you? This is not at all. These ideas don't follow from one another. This is an article from Current Affairs that is supposedly a review of Chasten Buttigieg's memoir for young adults. And none of it has been about the book yet. This is insane. Recall that this is a man who left his job as mayor of South Bend, a job that voters elected him to do for 7 months, just so that he could park himself in a safe administrative military position in Afghanistan, and thus, in later years, be able to declare himself a war veteran when he ran for president. As I pointed out in Pete Buttigieg is Still Playing, an article that she wrote. Even in his position as transportation secretary, Pete has so far been the one who does nothing until compelled to take action. His inadequacy in dealing with the crisis situations came to the fore during the Norfolk Southern train derailment disaster earlier this year. Which, by the way, these are valid things to criticize Pete Buttigieg on. His choice of husband and the children he has is not one of them. Those aren't included there. Given all this, it's surprising that I Have Something to Tell You is a political manifesto disguised as a deeply boring all-American story in which Pete's entire political career, in keeping with Pete's entire political career so far, Pete Buttigieg's life has been quietly and meticulously engineered to be the perfect embodiment of American values, just gay. Shorn of the kind of details that only seem special because of a historical accident, Chasten met Pete and they fell in love and married and live happily with their surrogate-born twin biracial children and 2 dogs. There's very little to recommend. It's fine to be boring. Most of us wish for lives that are such, at least for periods of time, so that we can get some rest. But maybe don't write a memoir and then twist it around into a tale for young adults. I gotta say, like, there's something to be said in America for allowing children to know that they can grow up to be gay and have a husband and like a white picket fence and like the dogs and stuff. That there's something to that. There's something useful there. Right? Because so many kids in America, as they're growing up, think that it's impossible to be gay, or think that it's impossible for them to be trans. Because of their living situations, because of the people who are around them. And maybe it would help if they were able to, like, pick up a book and see, like, oh, yeah, actually, I could grow up to just be, like, a boring political person. You know, like, that would be fine. There's nothing objectionable about that, to me. Unless there's, like, another shoe dropping here. This seems to be the main critique of the book, that it's just, they're normal and gay, and that's disgusting. Like, what? Why? I don't like Pete Buttigieg. I think he's terrible. I hate him with every fiber of my being. But I hate him because he's just boring, and his politics are bad, and I find him deeply disingenuous. But none of the reasons listed here are things to criticize him on. So far. Alright, anyway. There is not enough time and space for an adequate history of childhood and young adult literature, except to point out that both are invented categories. Yeah! All categories of literature are invented categories! What are you talking about? Until the 19th century, when child labor laws were enacted, Charles Dickens, who had been working as a child in a blacking factory to support his family, was a major force behind them in England. The category of childhood was largely unknown as a political demographic. As for fiction, while there were stories meant for children, the category of young adult is a relatively new one, invented by publishing houses in the mid-1960s as they looked for new markets. It's a vague and capacious term, which explains, for instance, why Chasten Buttigieg's book is listed for anyone 12 and up. That's a really broad category. Some books are intended for really broad audiences. Man, the idea that, like, people who are, children, pre-puberty, and people who are still considered children but are going through puberty or just about finishing puberty might have different, like, fictional interests. That makes sense to me. I don't know about you guys, but it makes sense to me. Yes, it's a she's saying it's a young adult story because it's listed for ages 12 and up. And that's bad because it reinforces made up categories, but literally every category of book is made up. So the criticism here is absolutely baffling. So, who is this book for? And what purpose does it serve, besides being a raw cheerleading song for the political career of Chasten's husband, Pete? And in that context, what can we make of Pete Buttigieg's life story as told through his loyal and devoted husband? What lessons might young adults learn from it? And should they? What? Should they make anything of it? I don't know. If they want to, sure. This man, I know I'm gonna keep saying it. This is insane. Okay, now we are in section 1, which is titled Chasten's Early Life. Born Chasten Glesman, he took his husband's name. Chasten was born and raised in Traverse City, Michigan. There are some poignant sections here that remind us that while very, very few LGBTQ...
Asterisk
Aw,
Kyryu 216
Kyryu.
asterisk gave asterisk Maxolotl 5 asterisk a asterisk tier 1 asterisk subscription.
Thank you very much for gifting a sub to Maxolotl, who has a very adorable username that I did not actually put together until text-to-speech said it out loud. So, love that username. Thank you very much. All right. There are some poignant sections here that remind us that while very, very few LGBTQ children growing up in very specific urban neighborhoods might feel safe and cherished as they express and explore their identities, a great number still live lives of relative isolation and pain. Chasten writes movingly, quote, "As the truth grew clearer and clearer, I pushed it deeper and deeper into the closet. By high school, it felt as if my heart were on the outside of my chest, exposed, vulnerable, and easy to break." Unquote. At one point, he writes, he was being beaten up by school bullies who only stopped because his elder brother intervened, but while the latter walked home with him, he never discussed the incident, then or after, something that had to be heartbreaking for a young boy. Chasten writes about often being reminded of such isolation when he meets older gay men still living closeted lives who are happy to see an out gay candidate with his partner on the campaign trail. He has very little to say about trans people, but that's typical of a book that sees gay only in normative cisgendered terms, like the mainstream gay community, which only takes up the issues of trans people as a way to drive donor funds. The Buttigiegs will doubtless turn to them only when convenient. It's his memoir. If he didn't interact with trans people growing up, or know any trans people growing up, which is incredibly possible for someone who's 33, like, that's not an impossibility. Like, I just turned 32, chat. Like, growing up in high school, I didn't know any trans people. There are some trans people who came out after high school, but like 2 in my high school that had 5,000 or 6,000 people in it. If you're not in like a main area, like, it's entirely possible that like you just didn't know any trans people. You might be trans and still not know any trans people in real life. Like, this is shame on Chasten Buttigieg for not talking about trans people. What are you talking about? He grew up in Michigan. Wait, sorry, where's Traverse City, Michigan? I'm gonna look that up real quick. I don't know, like how Traverse City population. How about that? That will tell me more. Yeah, it's Traverse City is up on like the mitt of Michigan. It has 15,000 people in it. That is tiny as fuck. I was friends with every trans person in high school, but we were all eggs until after graduation. You know, it is funny how we tend to sniff each other out, you know? I was so fortunate to find an awesome and cool queer friend all through high school. One of my best and coolest friends was a trans guy who played cello, and I miss them often. Aw. But yeah, no, like, this is... This is... Oh, how dare this guy from a town that probably 30 years ago had an even smaller population? How dare he not write about all of his experiences with trans people in his memoir? Anyway. Unlike many other gay teens, and despite the coldness of his brother, Chasten still grew up in a loving family. Upon coming out to his grandmother, she simply reached out to clasp his arm and said, I know, Chasers, and I love you just the same. Soon after he came out to his mother, he fled the house and spent weeks living in his car on his friends' couches because he was so convinced that his parents would reject him. In a Washington Post profile, he recounts hearing one of his brothers declaring, "No brother of mine," and it's unsurprising that he felt unwelcome in his own home. His parents worried about him and called and tried to get him to return, which he eventually did. His brother Ryan... okay, the worst part about this story so far that's actually terrible is that Chasten Buttigieg has an older brother named Ryan, and Ryan is spelled R-H-Y-A-N. Ryan! Ryan! Yeah, you really gotta add the breathy H in there. Ryan. I don't know. Maybe there is more trans people in this story than I thought. That's right. That's a dig on trans people. I see you putting H's in your names where they don't belong. Anyway. His brother Ryan told the Post that while he loves Chasten, he does not support the gay lifestyle, a clearly homophobic reaction. Families are complicated. Sometimes they change over time, and sometimes only in bits, but Chasten's parents appear to be as supportive as they could be, even walking him down the aisle at his wedding to Pete. Of his father, he writes, "In many of the circles I was in, there were very specific types of masculinity or manliness that needed to be displayed in order to be seen as a tough guy. He taught me that a quiet man is no weaker than the loudest in the room, and that love and tenderness and vulnerability aren't things to be ashamed of." His parents were not well off, and while they were able to keep Chasten and his two brothers fed and housed, they had to work multiple jobs to make sure they had money to pay the bills. This included selling Christmas trees every winter, an enterprise that included all the children helping with sales in addition to their landscaping business. His mother took shifts as a nursing assistant to make more money. So far, this seems like a pretty straight, yeah, I can see why this would be a memoir you would write. Oh, we had to scrape by and I was gay, but my family was not accepting when I came out. But then, we got better over time and I got married and things worked out. That seems to be not a bad concept for a memoir to sell to young adults. I don't know. Sloth DOS. It's my name and I can spell it however I want. I support you. I support you spelling names however you want. Okay. Chasten writes about all this as signs that his parents were and are the best kind of Americans, hardworking people who throw themselves into every opportunity so they might get by. This is hardly what we should want for our parents in their old age, or really ever. To have to constantly grind away at multiple jobs just to be sure there is enough for clothes, food, heating, always fearful of emergencies because even a child's broken foot or tooth could send the family over the edge into bankruptcy. But of course, this is what liberal politicians like the Buttigiegs hold up as ideal. Wait. I don't think if you asked Chasten Buttigieg if it was good that his parents had to scrape to get by, that he would say that, yeah, it was great. That they should have suffered. What? What are you talking about? He's not writing the memoir to advocate for that particular struggle. What are you talking about? The acting like him telling his life story is like him endorsing that everyone should be struggling like his parents struggled. That's deeply weird. It's deeply, deeply weird, chat. Just another reason why intersectional analysis is important. Yeah. Yeah, not gonna lie, it's weird how much people act like cis white gays have never faced real adversity just because other people might have it worse. True. Intersectionality is very important in understanding these things. All right. But of course, this is what liberal politicians like the Buttigiegs hold up as ideal. Recall that Michelle Obama spoke approvingly of teachers working without pay to keep their unfunded schools going. There are signs that Chasten understands that such politics are bullshit, especially as he acquires student loans after college, but in the memoir, he constantly harps on the work ethics of his parents because really, how could he not? Can a first man really afford to take the view that the United States is a country that forces its not rich to live draped around the grindstone of eternal work till they die, always afraid that a single medical emergency might send them into catastrophe? He literally wrote about it in his book. The reason he writes about their work ethic approvingly is because that work ethic was what kept them all from dying. What's wrong with you? As for gay politics, Chasten's politics are unsurprisingly conventional, echoing many conservative gay activists. By the way, Yasmin Nair considers any like liberal gay person pushing for things like marriage equality to be conservative gay activists. Echoing many conservative gay activists, he cautions his young reader that, quote, we have to get a place at the table, unquote. He goes on, quote, if you have a seat at the table, then you get to be part of the conversation and decision-making, unquote. Later, he writes about the AIDS crisis of the 1980s, quote, because HIV/AIDS was affecting primarily gay people, the government was very slow to get involved since it was unsupportive of the LGBTQ community in general, unquote. In such bland terms, he erases one of the darkest eras of stigma, one that left millions unable to find hospital beds or graves to be buried in, and he leaves out one of the richest and most explosive parts of queer history, when very, very angry queer people of groups like ACT UP and Queer Nation literally broke the table, as it were, and forced the government and pharmaceutical companies to create access to life-saving medications. Okay. But it might have been better. I'm just throwing this out there. It might have been better if instead of activist groups having to break the table, that problem didn't exist in the first place, because queer people already were at the table to say that it was a problem. Also, without going into it, the reason that the government and pharmaceutical companies moved to create access to life-saving medications was not because of queer activism. I mean, that certainly didn't hurt. It didn't hurt at all. But a lot of it was in response to the fact that more and more evidence was coming out that straight people were getting HIV and AIDS. Like, that was kind of the actual catalyst for government and pharmaceutical action. So you know, like, also, again, yeah, this was being written in he was born in 1990, okay? He wasn't born in the 80s. When he was a child in the 90s, he wasn't really that cognizant of the AIDS crisis. And I say that because, again, he's only 1 year older than me, and during the 90s, I wasn't that cognizant of the AIDS crisis either, because I was a babby. Hey, Sock Dunn left. This is just, this is deeply weird. Like, I'm sorry that you read a book and you wanted a different one, but, like, What the hell? Wait, he's way younger than I thought, though? Am I getting his age wrong? Or I thought it was reference. Sorry, he's 34 years old. Sorry, my bad. He was born in 1989. Okay, he's 2 years older than me. He's not like 40? Nope, he's 34 years old, baby. And yeah, Pete Buttigieg is 41 years old. So, yeah. Kind of robbing the cradle there, Pete. Anyway. Not a thing to really critique him on, to be honest. I have no problem with this. Okay. When it comes to public figures and cultural history, Chasten is similarly bland and regurgitates all the accepted narratives. About Ellen DeGeneres, he writes that she had been forced off the air because she came out as gay. Oh. Well, chat, remember that thing I warned you about was going to happen? This article's about to take a really weird turn. Okay. When it comes to public figures and cultural history, Chasten is similarly bland and regurgitates all the accepted narratives. About Ellen DeGeneres, he writes that she had been forced off the air because she came out as gay, and that Matthew Shepard had been murdered for the same reason. In fact, both stories are more complicated. DeGeneres actually never stopped working, even as an out lesbian, and her coming out episode on Ellen was the highest rated of the show, which continued for one more season. After Ellen, she was cast in yet another sitcom titled The Ellen Show, where she played an out lesbian, and then went on to her talk show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, which stayed on the air from 2003 to 2022. Also, that is very confusing. Just, you have a show named Ellen, then you have The Ellen Show, and then you have The Ellen DeGeneres Show. The producers needed to get a little bit more creative, okay? It just needed to get a little bit more creative. Please, for the love of God. And yeah. Hey, Metal Kitty Mom, how you doing? All right. The show's end had nothing to do with her lesbianism and everything to do with several complaints involving racism and sexism and an extremely toxic work culture behind the scenes, belying the shiny, happy facade of the host. Okay. Now, here we go. Similarly, while Matthew Shepard was certainly brutally beaten, the causes behind his death have long been detailed as more complicated. Joanne Wypajewski wrote a famous 1999 piece for Harper's, pointing out that the incident was deeply entrenched in a nexus of class, sex, and the shabby economy of Laramie, Wyoming. More recently, Stephen Jimenez demythologized Shepard's life, bringing more evidence that the death was part of a drug deal gone awry. None of this excuses the murder, but the background of poverty and economics makes a simple tale of homophobia more untenable and locates sexuality within larger contexts. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the story of Matthew Shepard, she literally just, for no goddamn reason at all, threw in "He Was No Angel" about a guy who was beaten to death. Beaten and left to die on the side of the road tied up with barbed wire. Wait, is the same guy who wrote the article on Matthew Shepard? Yeah, Stephen Jimenez's new book, The Book of Matt, aims to demythologize Matthew Shepard. She links it to her review of The Book of Matt. Wow. Yeah. Wow, dude. Wow, dude. So, Chat, I'm just going to relay to you briefly the events leading up to his murder, okay? On the night of October 6, 1998, Shepard was approached by Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson at the Fireside Lounge in Laramie, Wyoming. All three men were in their early 20s. McKinney and Henderson offered to give Shepard a ride home. They subsequently drove to a remote rural area and proceeded to rob, pistol whip, and torture Matthew Shepard, tying him to a split-rail fence and leaving him to die. And he was tied to that fence using barbed wire. It was erroneously reported by the news that he'd been tied to a barbed wire fence. However, he was tied to a fence with barbed wire. Many media reports contained the graphic account of the pistol whipping and his fractured skull. Reports described how Shepard was beaten so brutally that his face was completely covered in blood, except where it had been partially cleansed by his tears. The assailant's girlfriends testified that neither McKinney nor Henderson was under the influence of alcohol or drugs at the time of the attack. McKinney and Henderson testified that they learned of Shepard's address and intended to steal from his home as well. After attacking Shepard and leaving him tied to the fence in near-freezing temperatures, McKinney and Henderson returned to town. McKinney proceeded to pick a fight with two men, 19-year-old Emiliano Morales and 18-year-old Jeremy Herrera. The fight resulted in head wounds for both Morales and McKinney. Police officer Flint Waters arrived at the scene of the fight. He arrested Henderson, searched McKinney's truck, and found a blood-smeared gun, along with Shepard's shoes and credit card. Henderson and McKinney later tried to persuade their girlfriends to provide alibis to them and help them dispose of evidence. Still tied to the fence, Shepard was in a coma 18 hours after the attack when he was discovered by Aaron Kreefels, a cyclist who initially mistook Shepard for a scarecrow. Reggie Flutie, the first police officer to arrive on the scene, found Shepard alive but covered in blood. Shepard was transported first to Ivinson Memorial Hospital in Laramie before being moved to the more advanced trauma ward at Padre Valley Hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. He had suffered fractures to the back of his head and in front of his right ear. He experienced severe brainstem damage, which affected his body's ability to regulate his heart rate, body temperature, and other bodily functions. There were also about a dozen lacerations around his head, face, and neck. His injuries were deemed too severe for doctors to operate. Shepard never regained consciousness and remained on full life support. While he lay in intensive care, and in the days following the attack, candlelight vigils were held in countries around the world, and he was pronounced dead 6 days after the attack. He was 21 years old. So, his two murderers were charged with murder, kidnapping, and aggravated robbery. Sergeant Rob Debris at the first McKinney's pretrial hearing testified that McKinney had stated in an interview on October 9th that he and Henderson had identified Shepard as a robbery target and pretended to be gay to lure him out to their truck, and that McKinney had attacked Shepard after Shepard put his hand on McKinney's knee. Detective Ben Fritzen testified that Price stated McKinney told her the violence against Shepard was triggered by how McKinney, quote, felt about gays, unquote. So, yeah. Literally, you guys are familiar with, like, the trans panic defense? Prior to the trans panic defense, and included in this, is the gay panic defense, which was used, actually, in the trial in 1999. The lawyer for McKinney attempted to use the gay panic defense, arguing that McKinney was driven to temporary insanity by Matthew Shepard's advances. However, even in 1999, the judge said, nah, not going for that. Yeah. So, I hope that helps to explain a little bit why saying here, none of this excuses the murder, but is so unbelievably disgusting. Yeah, they got life in prison. So they're still there now, I believe. Like, if the argument is, oh man, the experience of gender and sexuality and class, like it's so complicated for any one individual. Yeah. But it's also not like you while it is complicated, right? The idea that like, oh well, because this is a intersection of class and it might have involved drugs, who knows, because of all that, like, oh well, Pete Buttigieg talking about how Matthew Shepard's crucifixion like affected him as a teen growing up, like, I find that particularly disgusting. Because, yeah, of course, everything's complicated. Everything is complicated. This is also complicated. But the complexity isn't in whether or not he got murdered for being gay. Because he was. Like, I know that growing up, that deeply affected me. Growing up, it affected me as like a... I guess I would have been 7 or 8 at the time. Like, as a 7 or 8-year-old, being aware that it happened, and like, oh, that's what can happen to you if you are just publicly gay, or people know that you're gay, or know that you're trans. Well, that makes it a lot scarier to exist publicly as either of those things, especially if you live in a small Midwestern town. Like, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And honestly, this is... I would classify that as pretty goddamn homophobic of Yasmin Nair. Anyway, we're going to move on through the article. Chasten Buttigieg pushes aside such complications surrounding living and dead public figures in favor of heroic narratives that present much simpler tales. Brave gay people fighting against all odds and sometimes facing the worst consequences. And certainly, the current political climate on LGBTQ issues is deeply troubling. Recent anti-trans legislation has mushroomed across the United States, leaving trans children, youth, and adults under threat of attack and erasure. Yeah. Because, trans people in the 90s weren't under threat of attack either, I guess. Wow, you didn't talk about how trans people in the 90s were under threat. How dare you, Yasmin Nair? That's a really transphobic oversight of yours. See, we can both be really disingenuous little pricks, can't we? It's amazing. Anything's possible in Biden's America. This isn't pursuing journalistic integrity. This is just running defense for a hate crime and being like, hey, maybe it's because he did too many drugs. Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. And then using that to criticize Chasten Buttigieg for not, like, talking about a hate crime in the way you would like him to. Just, man. Anyway, moving on. We will note again that Chasten makes no significant mention of trans people in the book. And gays and lesbians are hardly much safer amidst a rising tide of conservative politics. But if a memoir about gay life and its possibilities is to be honest with its audience, it needs to be less afraid of the raw truths facing its readers. Keep in mind, this woman literally wrote an article about how same-sex marriage was a trap. if she had her way, you wouldn't have the right to get married as a gay in the United States. Because it would be so much more progressive if we just dismantled the institution of marriage. Leftists like these, we don't need anyone on the right, okay? God damn it. God damn it. All right. But if a memoir about gay life and its possibilities is to be honest with its audience, it needs to be less afraid of the raw truths facing its readers. Next section, growing up Chasten. In the adult version of his memoir, this is an awkward phrase, but we strain to find another for such a strange literary form. What? You're the one writing the phrase. You're the one using it. Use a different phrase. You could say in his memoir, designed for adults to read. There are so many other ways you could phrase it. Other than adult version, which makes it sound like a porno. You don't have to do that. Yeah, no, the first part of this is all laying the groundwork for being a piece of shit throughout the rest of it. Oh, God. Okay. In the adult version of his memoir, this is an awkward phrase, but we strain to find another for such a strange literary form. Chasten writes explicitly about a sexual assault he suffered at the age of 18. Why the fuck? I'm about to be really, really petty. I have a degree in English literature, okay? I have a degree. I wrote journalism. I did journalism for like 10 years, okay? You're about to start a new section of this article about how Chasten Buttigieg wrote about being sexually assaulted as an 18-year-old. Why the fuck are you talking? You're putting that as the second part of the sentence and using the first part to talk about how awkward it is to talk about the adult version of his memoir when you know you're about to finish the sentence by talking about his sexual assault. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Jesus Christ, dude. He was ultimately able to fend off his attacker, a man whose sexual advance quickly turned violent, but that experience left him feeling shocked, shaken, and suspicious of other people for a long while. This incident is left out of the young adult version. Yeah, probably because they didn't want to try and sell a memoir that included an attempted rape in it to 12-year-olds. It could be argued that children as young as 12 don't need to read about sexual assault, probably especially in a book that's designed to nurture their sense of self and safety as they think about their sexual identity. But what is the point of discussing sexual identity and not pointing out that it often involves moments of real danger? I'm sorry. There are tons of books that discuss sexual identity for children that just have like hand holding. I'm sorry. At the end of like a gay fantasy story for children, where like the prince goes to save his his princely love, and has to kiss him on the mouth to like wake him from like the witch's sleep. Does he right before that have to like fend off like the evil king's like sexual assault? What are you talking about? This is fucking crazy. Yeah, you can talk about sexual identity without being like, without the caveat of like, yes, by being gay, sometimes you will get sexually assaulted. What are you talking about? Do you think every time they talk about heterosexuality, they also have to be like, yes, and in heterosexuality, sometimes you might get raped? What are you talking about? That's literally in almost no books, especially books geared for children. This is like opening up a portal to hell and then reading a book we found there. I think they do. What was she wearing? That's generally not in books geared towards 12-year-olds. Who's writing this? A woman named Yasmin Nair, who is terrible and we'll get to eventually. Why not use the incident to highlight the complexities of navigating the world of sexuality and desire, to perhaps teach, as so much of young adult literature seems doomed to do, youth how to anticipate, prepare for, and handle awkward situations that might place them at risk of such attacks. Again, awkward situations aren't what put people at risk of attacks. There are plenty of awkward situations you can be in where someone isn't going to sexually assault you. I am furious. Yeah, how dare Chasten Buttigieg's memoir that he designed for young adults or, you know, children going through puberty. How dare it not tell them how to defend against a sexual assault? Fuck you. I'm sorry. Like, I believe that children should be taught how to deal with those things. I believe in comprehensive sex ed, but I don't go around and, like, complain about the fact that people's memoirs aren't dealing with that topic. Because that's not necessarily the job of the memoir. That's the job of our education system. God fucking damn it. Instead, Chasten's dominant message with this book is about authenticity, a meaningless word that is nevertheless taken up by gay activists and allies like Cyndi Lauper, whose True Colors Foundation makes a virtue of telling young LGBTQ people in particular to live in their true selves. We could argue that this is merely encouragement to be themselves, but authenticity, like equality, is a trap. Chasten writes, quote, "I hope that by reading about my journey, you will feel compelled to keep sharing yours as authentically as you can," unquote. What does it mean to be authentically queer? In gay organizing, authenticity is code for, quote, "be fabulous and the kind of LGBTQ person who is easily recognized as such," unquote, and, quote, "make sure you find a life partner," unquote. What are you talking about? Being authentic. You've literally read through his life story already. We talked about his early years. You talked about it and how he lived closeted because he was beat up at school for being gay, and how his brother didn't talk to him and continues to reject him to this day, and how he was so scared of rejection from his parents that he went and lived in his car. And, like, you are here being like, oh, what does it even mean to live authentically anyway? It doesn't even mean anything. It meant something to him, you dipshit. It meant something to him because he couldn't live authentically, because he wasn't safe. And he's there telling those kids who might read his memoir that it is, in fact, as scary as it is to be authentically yourself, as scary as it is to come out and be gay publicly or be trans publicly, that it will be worth it. Because being honest and the version of the self that you are is better for you than to live a lie. That's it's not that complicated. Now, in gay organizing circles, well, maybe it does mean that you have to be a certain type of gay in order to find acceptance. But that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about just not hiding that you're gay or trans. And also, you can be authentically yourself and be single. There are plenty, I'm sorry, there are plenty of very open gay people who are very single. All right? Like, the idea that you can only be authentic if you have a life partner, I don't know where that idea is coming from. How old is Yasmin? Clearly older than dirt, because these ideas seem like they should have died out a long time ago. All right. Towards the end, Chasten writes about that the answer to the question, quote, if you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, what would it be, unquote, is you're going to fall in love both with yourself and with someone else. But why? Why tell someone, potentially a mere 12 years of age, that falling in love is so important? What if the lesson were the world is actually sometimes a scary, dark place, and here are the warning signs to look out for? Or never believe that someone's validation of you is so important that you let them take you into a strange room. Or the world has historically refused to give queers even a semblance of life itself, and we only got what we needed by breaking a lot of things, including their dinner table and screaming in the streets. I'm sorry. Like, when young people are struggling with their sexuality and their gender identity, one of the most common feelings is to believe that if they come out, no one will ever love them again. That they will lose everyone who is close to them in their life, and that their life will be irrevocably broken. That is why there are so many LGBTQ youth who kill themselves. Because they believe they are in a hopeless situation. And to young people, to hear that they're going to be okay, that they are going to find someone who loves them, even if the entire world falls apart, that is a life-saving message for some children who might be a mere 12-year-old. That is a life-saving message. For those kids who are struggling with their gender identity and their sexuality, I don't know how useful it is to tell them, yeah, kid, the world's a really scary place, and you really got to be prepared for being raped because you're in a real vulnerable position in this world. A lot of people are gonna try and take advantage of you, and you got to make sure you know how to stab a bitch. That's not necessarily a super helpful message to someone who is scared of being alone forever, or who thinks that their situation is hopeless. I am so mad that this person is looking at, like, I'm sure, I'm not even here to defend Chasten Buttigieg's memoir. I don't know it. I haven't read it. It might be really boring to read. That's very possible. But this doesn't seem to be upset at that. This seems to be upset at the idea that, like, a memoir designed for young adults is trying to give, 12, people aged 12 and up some fucking hope for their future. I am just so mad at the idea that someone can see that attempt, even if it's, a boring attempt, and be like, well, you really should have told them about the threat of being raped. What is wrong with you? This is like reading through Lord of the Rings and being like, you know what? This really needs to reflect, the ills and evils of our world more. So add more sexual assaults in there. What are you talking about? You piece of shit. How dare you? How dare you? Instead, Chasten offers up a vision of queer life for young people that is, at best, a series of affirmations born out of gay-straight alliance culture. Which, yeah, would make sense, because he grew up with the gay-straight alliance. That is the era. Congratulations, you recognized how old he is. Like his and Pete's life together, it's carefully calibrated to ensure that an imagined and very normative straight person won't be offended by anything. Like references to queer death or sex or anger or social movements that aren't just about gaining access to the economic advantages of marriage. Youths are admonished to be happy, to be authentic, to believe in hard work, no matter how grueling their work might be. It will all work out, and a romantic interest will make it all go away. What remains to be told? What would have been an actual memoir for... What would have been an actual memoir for youth? Yasmin Nair should be banned by a judge from ever using quotes. No more quotation marks. Like every other sentence, it's like some attempt, like Gen X level, like attempt at irony to like add the air quotes. It's infuriating. Fuck her. Fuck her. Fuck her. I hate her so much. I hate her. Also, real talk, tweens are obsessed with trying to cultivate their identity. That's why Disney movies are so focused around identity. It's literally developmental psychology. Yeah, it's almost like young adults are trying to figure out who they're going to be. Yeah, it's crazy. Bailiff, bring the device. Oh, God. All right. What remains to be told? What would have been an actual memoir for use? And is Chasten responsible for saying more? Fuck you. But also, you read his memoir, where he talked about being a youth and being deeply unhappy because he thought his family would completely reject him, or being beaten up for being gay. He talked about those things. He's clearly not saying you need to be happy in any and all circumstance. Like, what are you talking about? You're like extrapolating lessons that aren't even seemingly present, or at least you haven't made an argument that they're present. You know? Be authentic. Yeah, you should be able to be publicly gay without getting like beaten up or sexually assaulted. Have I looked through this writer's article history? I have, and we'll be talking about it in a bit. And also, again, yeah, there's some value in being told everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, there's some value in that. There's some value in having a partner who is going to be in your corner and support you. But you know what? You can also get that support from friends, from your community. You can also get that affirmation from friends and community as well. Like, at no point in any of this has she made the appropriate case that one would have to make to say that, oh, well, you know, in Chasten Buttigieg's memoir, you know, he gets married to Pete Buttigieg and then everything's fine. Like, that doesn't seem to be something she's actually substantiated here. It seems to be projection. Pro tip, it does not improve. I bet it doesn't. Lessons from Chasten. We're on another section here. In his essay on the moral responsibilities of political spouses, Hamilton Nolan looks at the life and politics of Cheryl Hines, the wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Wait. The wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kennedy. What? Was that his actual name, or is that a typo? No, that's clearly a typo. Okay. Just, yeah, like I'm not crazy, right? Like this is here? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kennedy? Okay, all right. We'll learn a little bit about RFK. It's fine. An anti-vaccine conspiracy theorist correctly described by Nathan J. Robinson and Lily Sanchez as, quote, a lying crank posing as a progressive alternative to Biden, unquote, in these pages. Hines, well known for her role on Curb Your Enthusiasm as Larry David's progressive wife, also named Cheryl, has been able to demur when asked about her political beliefs. But Kennedy has spoken about her tremendous influence on him. While it's customary to see political spouses as secondary, silent partners, no one asks, is Cheryl Hines willing to sit down with the children of someone who listened to RFK Jr. and decided not to get vaccinated and died, or the mother of a depressed teenager who didn't take their antidepressants and fell prey to suicide, and say to those people, your family had to die so that I could have peace in my own family? Okay. Yeah, yes. Spouses of people are responsible for the other person's crime. Yep. That's how this works. Yep. And so, if after this I go and Roblox myself, will Yasmin Nair take responsibility for writing such a shitty article that I wanted to Roblox myself? I think she has a brain tumor. I feel like I have one now. Thanks, Yasmin Nair. All right. It's more than likely that the liberal press will be soft to Chasten, just as it ignores the moral culpability of spouses like Hines. Even mild criticism of a gay candidate and his adorable, handsome family can be dismissed as homophobic by the Buttigiegs and their supporters in a very, very powerful mainstream gay lobby. But Chasten can't just be the innocuous gay man who brings a reassuring and Buttigiegistic for the crime of using the word Buttigiegistic, I feel like I just read like an eldritch word. Like it's breaking my brain. Buttigiegistic. Yeah, we need to bring the gulags back just for this woman. Oh my god. Oh my god. Also, again, you can criticize Pete Buttigieg on a multitude of issues without it being about him being gay. It's okay for him to be a bland, boring gay. That's fine. What's not fine are his politics and the things he does. Ah, God. Okay. The Buttigiegistic worldview to the masses. Quote, yes, we're gay, but fear not. We will unleash wars and ignore poverty, just like everyone else. To use a phrase that originated in radical feminist and queer circles, the Buttigiegs enable a pinkwashing of American imperialism. The problem is not that their lifestyles are too normative, but that nothing about their vision for the world is a departure. Then why have you been spending the entire thing talking about their lifestyles being too normative? Why did you why are you talking about them as if their lifestyle being normative is the problem? Because that's what you've done the entire time. Their politics are bad, so criticize their politics. Criticize their policy positions. Oh my god, dude, I'm getting a stress headache. Their gayness provides a progressive cover for a politics that's all about preserving the status quo. They could be men who walk around in leather chaps with multiple partners and their politics would still be troubling. Yeah, so why haven't you been talking about them? You've been talking about how oh man, they have such a carefully curated life. They have 2 rescue dogs, and one of them has 1 eye, and they adopted biracial children. And I'm not saying that they did it to avoid charges of racism, but I am gonna use an entire paragraph and a half to accuse them of that. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Oh my god, dude. Alternative life's, again, the air quotes, constant air quotes, lifestyles are no guarantee of radical or even mildly progressive politics, as anyone who has walked into any leather shop or bar in Chicago's racist, classist, and sexist gay neighborhood, North Olmsted, can tell you. Then anyone could tell you this. Then why are you writing it? If anyone could tell it to you, why are you writing it? This is sadly true of the city's entire gay scene, but that's a different essay. Jesus. Yeah, Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, the entire Chicago gay scene is racist, classist, and sexist. Yeah. Okay. Like, guys, you can write about, hey, the gay scene in Chicago, obviously there's an intersection of, like, race, class, and sexuality, and, like, gender. There's an intersection of all these ideas. Yes. Yeah, yes. Those exist everywhere. Those ideas intersect everywhere. All right. Gonna keep going. I can't believe Current Affairs published this drivel. I have something to tell you presents a gay life that, having overcome some obstacles, is nevertheless able to purposefully stride towards an apolitical American life. It's not an apolitical American life. He's a politician. Why? How would you synthesize this in this way? This is insane. Along the way, it recasts vital parts of American and gay history. In this version of America, the gayness. Wait, the prose. In this version of America the Gay, which is a title, I guess, for what she's talking about, comma, gayness is translated as either a tragic life to be overcome or one that can only be happy when straight people first pity you and then allow you to marry. What are you talking about? Yeah, being rejected by your family is tragic, you fucking asshole. Yeah. Yeah, if you are gay in middle of America and you are rejected by your family, yeah, that's something you needed to overcome. Oh god, remember earlier in the article when she talked about how trauma was a meaningless term now? And then talked about how Chasten Buttigieg was like the victim of sexual assault? Oh god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh god, dude. Okay. And also, you can be perfectly, I don't know who needs to know this. You can be perfectly happy as a gay person without any partners. That is totally possible. Many people are like that, okay? I don't think Chasten Buttigieg was dedicating this book to the idea that the only way you can be happy is if you get married. But you know what? I'm guessing that because it's his own fucking memoir, he's writing about how getting married made him really fucking happy. Because that's what he wanted to do. And it's fine if you don't want to do that, but that's what he wanted, and it's his fucking memoir. Oh my god. Fuck, dude. Inconvenient complications like angry queers organizing around AIDS, something that happened when he was either not born yet or was a child, unable to be aware of those things in the 90s around AIDS or demanding rights outside of marriage are quietly brushed away. What are you talking about? You think that Chasten Buttigieg wouldn't want equal rights? But even if he did want equal rights and spent time in his memoir talking about the desire for equal rights, Yasmin Nair, you literally are a co-founder of an organization called Against Equality. You don't even want equal rights. Jesus Christ, dude. It's an admonition to youth to only be a certain kind of gay. It's literally not. It's literally not. He's just talking about his own life. It's his own. This is, by the way, the same thing that conservatives do, that conservative reactionaries do when they see, like, any gay media, right? They're like, oh, huh. Look at that. They're pushing the gay agenda. Soon there will only be lesbian homes. Those will be the only homes that are legally allowed. Because they're putting out lesbian media. And like this Yasmin Nair is reading Chasten Buttigieg's memoirs like, huh, that's what Chasten Buttigieg wants. Only gays to get married. Like, that's the only right way to be gay because that's what he wrote about in his memoir of his own life story. Fuck off. Fuck off. As a political manifesto, I have something to tell you provides a blueprint for a gay constituency whose only challenge to American empire and capitalism is that our most oppressive institutions should be queer affirming. And you know what? That is a coherent point to criticize about the book, but it's one of maybe 3 sentences in this entire thing so far that has been a coherent, like, criticism of the Buttigieg's policy positions. The rest of it is you extrapolating insane shit from things that happened to him in real life. Yeah, no, Natalie Lush, she imagines this memoir to be a political manifesto, which is why she's using it to then springboard off into insane conclusions. Chasten and Pete will serve as the Ken and Ken dolls on top of a wedding cake, obscuring any memory of a time when queer radical action meant demanding the seemingly impossible: universal healthcare, an end to poverty, housing and security for all. Chasten has something to tell us, sure, but it's well modulated. It's a well-modulated, soothing whisper, telling tales of good gay people sitting decorously at the table. Queer people have suffered and continue to suffer enormous harm, not just because they're queer, but because capitalism only sees their worth when their identities can be deployed to further its own ends, and it spits out those too inconvenient to have around. Angry radicals, trans queer youth demanding a say in their own health, and so on. But youth across sexualities and whatever their age deserve more and better. They deserve to know their radical history, and that the world can be an exciting place for them. But they also need to know that they should avoid and ignore decorous gay men whose lives, fabricated across multiple anodyne memoirs, serve to erase both the darkness and the rich complexity of real lives. Yasmin Nair, fuck you. And I hope your name gets stricken from this article. I hope Current Affairs issues an apology, because this is one of the worst things I've ever read in my life. This is there's no more. The article's done. But I think, you know what? Let's go back. Let's time travel a little bit. We're going to time travel here back to 2010. And we're going to look at this. Windy City Times, the voice of Chicago's gay, lesbian, bi, trans, and queer community since 1985. Oh, look, here's an article. Queer writers and activists criticize marriage equality movement at Forum Books. This is from 2010. And here we go. Contrary to what some people believe, it's not just conservative heterosexual institutions that criticize the gay marriage movement. Again, this is 5 years before gay marriage became legal. Although their reasoning is different, queer activists also have their criticisms. That point was clear as editor/contributor Ryan Conrad and contributor Yasmin Nair discussed their pocket-sized book, Against Equality, Queer Critiques of Gay Marriage. Yeah. They gave this talk to a library with approximately 30 attendees. One of the items discussed was the blue and yellow greater than symbol that the group Against Equality uses. Conrad said it was a ripoff of the Human Rights Campaign's logo. The campaign uses an equal sign. Nair clarified in a post-event talk that it's our response to this notion of equality. The sign is very tongue-in-cheek, but there also needs to be a better than equality and push for a more radical utopian vision of society. I wonder if that utopian vision of society would include equal rights. I wonder if it would include equal rights. Jesus Christ, dude. At one point, Nair talked about the book's title itself. People ask, how can you possibly be against equality? That's like being against rainbows and all things good? But equality, what does equality mean, and how has it been used and deployed over the years to signify anything good and grandiose and progressive? A lot of people say progressives and gays as if they mean the same thing. But what we're contending in this book is that no, what constitutes the gay movement today is actually the gay right. It's a deeply conservative movement. She, in 2010, was talking about how gay people wanting to get married was actually conservative. In a talk that touched on law, history, and even psychology, Nair discussed how things changed for the gay community in the 90s. What you get in the 1990s is a break, as it were, for the gay community. You get a rise in the professional upper middle class of gay people. You also get at the same time is this breakdown in the notion of public sexual culture. So you see Times Square being cleaned out and Disneyfied, for example. And the two things actually come together, a gay professional class and a de-sexing of queer culture and straight life as well. So you get this conservatism. You get gay people who think AIDS is over. In fact, it's not. What starts to happen is that there's this idea of that gay is a class identity. People have this stereotype. They think that gays are all rich and have picket fence lifestyle. And within that framework of this change, you get marriage coming in. Marriage becomes the ultimate form of respectability. So what you are then critiquing here should be respectability politics. Not the concept of gay people being able to get married. Fuck, man. How are you being given this platform? What the hell? Ours is not the type of critique that says gay marriage is bad because we're not allowed to have sex anymore. That's a critique that a lot of radical queers have made, that gay marriage de-sexes us. The point is that gay marriage, as a kind of effective, sentimental movement, has allowed us to forget the kind of economic relationship we're supposed to have to the state. So when you talk about 1,138 benefits that gay married couples are deprived of, those are benefits that we're supposed to have anyway. You don't have to get married to have your life saved. You can do that and criticize it without saying that gay people shouldn't have the right to get married. This is absolute unhinged shit. An Equality Maine campaign letter had the audacity to claim that gay marriage is the fight of our lives. I guess, you know, at least consistent with the air quotes. I wonder whose lives they're talking about when AIDS service organizations and community reproductive clinics across the state have been tightening their belts and desperately trying to crunch numbers so that more queer folks don't end up unemployed, uninsured, or worse yet, dead. Well, you know, probably one of the reasons people really invested in the sentimental and respectable gay marriage movement was because gay marriage was a vehicle for making sure that people had health coverage, or making sure that, you know, they had the right to visit their loved ones in the hospital. That might be one of the reasons why gay people really wanted the right to get married. And while it is a salient point to say that maybe they shouldn't have had to get married to have those rights, you can do that without being against the concept of gay people being married. Jesus Christ, dude. Anyway, here are a couple takes from Paladin Lost's delving into her Twitter, because she is on Twitter. Here, Yasmin there. Te gays chant on Twitter. Oh my god, te gays? When was the last time you were online, you crusty ass bitch? Te gays chant on Twitter. We must stop Yasmin there. How do we do it? Find and post everything she ever wrote. Also, te gays on Twitter. Oh wait, shit. Baby gays in corner. We must stop te elder gays. Shh. No, shut up. No, shh. What the fuck is wrong with her? I'm glad to see all these trolls, gay men and their allies, descend upon my review of Chasten's memoir. Please, for the love of God, stop with the quotes. Stop. You have a problem, Yasmin. Like, you have so many other problems, but this is consistent across, like, over a decade of your writing. Please, for the love of God, stop your air quotes. I'm begging you. I'm literally begging you. Descended upon my review of Chasten's memoir. Many of us have long pointed out that the mainstream gay community is vicious, toxic, hateful, and will do anything to win its meager goals. Thanks for the proof. Fuck you. You're awful. Also, fuck you for using 3 air quotes in one tweet. Oh, God, dude. So I'm pretty mad. Pretty upset. What can we pull out of this? Chat, you always need to continue to be intellectually curious, okay? You need to be intellectually curious, and you need to be on guard against the pretty awful ravages of what reactionary rhetoric can do. Because otherwise, you can just find yourself being like, I hate the Buttigiegs, and therefore I'm going to write a scathing review of this memoir. And instead of actually critiquing their politics or the content of the memoir, really, you just wind up being upset that it's a memoir and that it is talking in hopeful terms to, you know, a very specific subculture or subsection of LGBTQ youth. And that could lead you to be an absolute dipshit. And with my content, the number one thing I want to do more than anything else is inoculate you guys against against dipshittery. I want you to be immune when the dipshit virus comes around, okay? Because if you're not, then you're just gonna read something like this and you're gonna be like, ah, yes, indeed, we should outlaw gay marriage because the gays shouldn't have marriage because marriage is bad. Like, I want to make sure your brain stays wrinkled and free from the dipshit virus, okay? I want that for you. Because the dipshit virus can permeate the blood-brain barrier, and then it's all Jover for you, okay? Please, for the love of God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Do not let your brain become smooth. Do not go quietly into that smooth brain. This woman just hates the concept of LGBTQ mainstreaming at such a high level that any sort of middle-class LGBTQ representation, any sort of normalization is just a cause for attack. She will literally say anything. Yeah, no, that's really the other part of it, you know? There are people who, like, really mourn the niche, like, subgenre that they used to belong to. And the fact that they are no longer as special, the fact that there's now, like, a larger online, you know, culture for LGBTQ people is deeply, deeply troubling for them. The fact that there are more products being marketed towards gay and trans people is deeply troubling. I'm sure Yasmin Nair would write an entire think piece about how terrible it is that there are now products that cater towards trans women being able to tuck better or more efficiently or more conveniently. And like, I'm a trans person. I use that sometimes because guess what? I like not looking like I have a dick sometimes. And sometimes I don't tuck because it's fine to have a dick. Like, the thing she is upset about is just that society has become more accepting of gay people. And for some reason, that is infuriating because maybe because back before it was accepting, it was cooler, or it felt more special, or something like that, or because activists had to really bleed and sweat and cry. But you know what? Maybe it's not good that people had to bleed and sweat and cry just for basic rights, like being able to get married. Maybe it's not good that activists had to riot and throw bricks through windows in order to just have the ability to have a gay bar that's not harassed by the police. Maybe those aren't good things. Maybe it's good that people did that in the first place, but maybe like the fact that they had to and those conditions weren't good. Okay. So, I've now been streaming for over 5 hours. If you guys have been enjoying the stream, please hit the follow button over on Twitch and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We really need more people to subscribe on YouTube. Hit the like button on the stream too. That helps a lot. And consider, by the way, if you're over on Twitch, coming on over to riverboat.gg, where you can watch ad-free. There are no ads over there, and you don't even have to subscribe. Come on over, and if you would like to support me financially, drop some subs or donos over on riverboat.gg, where 100% of it goes to me, as opposed to Twitch, where 50% of it goes to me, or YouTube, where 70% of it goes to me. If you want to support me, come on over to riverboat.gg. Liberals have a hard-on for civility politics that require the suffering minorities. Yeah, and like that's a thing to critique civility politics. You know? Like civility politics are stupid. They're terrible. I hate them. You know?
To help fight against the dipshit virus, liberals love the suffering of minorities under the guise of civility.
Thank you very much for the $10 dono, Insomnia Noir. Thank you for contributing to the anti-dipshit fund. We'll need it when when dipshit season comes around. It's coming up soon. I like how chat went from malding back to thirst immediately. Did it? Oh, because I talked about dicks. Yeah, that'll happen. Oh God. Okay. We're done. That segment is done. If you're looking for more of that segment, we are donezo. We are donezo Washington.